In 1754, leaders from several colonies met together in Albany, New York, to talk about joining in defense. Benjamin Franklin had an idea.
We should unite under one government, protect ourselves, and make decisions together. I call it the Albany Plan of Union.
That sounds smart, but our colonies might not want to give up their own power.
And Britain doesn't like the idea either. It gives too much independence.
Join the Albany Plan Union. Join or die.
No.
Albany Plan of Union in 1754 first suggested the colonies should unite for a common defense. Though it failed, the idea of cooperation grew stronger during the French and Indian War. With the British victory and the Treaty of Paris in 1763, France lost its lands, and Britain gained vast new territory. Excitement spread as colonies looked westward, eager to move beyond the Appalachians and start a new life on the frontier.
The Treaty of Paris in 1763, settlers moved west into new lands, sparking conflict with native nations. Led by Chief Pontiac, native warriors rose against British forts and settlers to defend their territory. The rebellion led Britain to issue the Proclamation of 1763, banning settlement west of the Appalachian and angering many colonists eager to expand.
Tensions between settlers and native peoples grew after Pontiac's rebellion, as fear and distrust replaced old alliances. In 1763, a group of settlers known as the Paxton Boys attacked and killed peaceful native people in Pennsylvania, blaming all tribes for frontier violence. The Paxton Massacre showed how deeply mistrust had spread. Once allies in war, natives were now seen by many colonists as enemies, marking a dark turn in frontier relations.
The massacre shocked the colonies and showed that westward expansion could be dangerous. To keep the peace and to make it easier to control the tax, the colonists later, Britain issued the Proclamation of 1763, banning settlements west of the Appalachians. Many colonists were angry, eager to move west, but now faced limits on where they could settle.
The Sugar Act of 1764 taxed sugar, molasses, and other goods, angering colonists who relied on trade. Some tried to avoid the tax by buying goods from other places, but they were accused of smuggling. Their trials were held far away in Canada, and there was no jury to defend them. Colonists felt powerless and frustrated. The Sugar Act wasn't just about sugar, it was about Britain control the colonies and keeping them close, ready to be taxed.
The Stamp Act of 1765 angered colonists by taxing every paper good. In response, representatives from 9 colonies met at Stamp Act Congress to unite and protest, echoing Benjamin Franklin's famous Join or Die message. Groups like the Sons and Daughters of Liberty organized demonstrations and encouraged colonists to boycott British goods, refusing to buy taxed items. The united effort worked. Britain eventually repealed the Stamp Act, showing the power of the colonial cooperation.
After repealing the Stamp Act, Britain passed the Declaratory Act of 1766. It reminded the colonies that Parliament had the right to make laws and tax them in all cases whatsoever. Colonists were frustrated. Even though one tax was gone, Britain's authority over them remained.
After the Declaratory Act, Britain continued to assert control with the Townshend Acts of 1767. These laws taxed everyday goods the colonies couldn't make themselves, like glass, paint, paper, and tea. Colonists were frustrated again, and groups like the Sons and Daughters of Liberty organized boycotts, refusing to buy British goods and showing that united action could make a difference.
1768, Massachusetts set out the circular letter, urging other colonies to unite and protest against the Townshend Acts. Colonists renewed their boycotts of British goods, refusing items like glass, paint, paper, and tea. British saw the growing resistance as a threat and responded by sending more troops to Boston, increasing tension on the streets.
Tensions in Boston reached a breaking point in 1770. Colonists were angry about taxes, boycotts, and the presence of British troops in their streets. One night, a confrontation escalated. Colonists threw snowballs and shouted at soldiers. In the chaos, the troops fired into the crowd. 5 colonists were killed, shocking the colonies and fueling anger towards Britain. The event became known as the Boston Massacre.
After the Boston Massacre, the British soldiers faced trial. John Adams defended them, arguing that they acted in self-defense against the angry crowd throwing snowballs and shouting. Most soldiers were acquitted, while a few were punished for minor charges. The trial showed that even amid rising tensions, colonists valued justice through resentment toward Britain continued to grow.
After the Boston Massacre, Paul Revere and other colonists created flyers showing the event as a brutal attack by British soldiers. These images angered colonists, spreading outrage across the colonies and making more people question British rule. The flyers turned the massacre into a symbol of British tyranny, fueling the growing resistance and calls for unity.
After the Boston Massacre, tension between the colonies and Britain kept growing. A few years later, Parliament passed the Tea Act of 1773. This law gave the British East India Company a monopoly, meaning it was the only company allowed to sell tea in the colonies. Parliament did this to help the company make money since Britain had invested in it. But the colonists saw it as another example of taxation without representation, which made them even angrier and pushed them closer to a rebellion. The Boston Tea Party happened on December 16, 1773, when American colonists protested British taxes on tea. Dressed as Mohawk Indians, they boarded ships in the Boston harbor and threw chests of tea into the water. This act showed their anger towards British rule and helped start the American Revolution. After the Boston Tea Party, Britain saw the protest as a bad act of rebellion. In response, Parliament passed a coercive act in 1774, closing Boston Harbor and taking away local control. The British thought they were restoring order, but the colonists saw it as an overreaction and unfair punishment, which only united them more against Britain.
In 1774, the colonies met at the First Continental Congress to decide how to respond to Britain's harsh laws. Some delegates wanted peace and sent the Olive Branch petition to ask the king to stop the unfair actions. Others supported the Suffolk Resolves, which encouraged colonies to resist the coercive acts and prepare for defense. Together, these showed the colonies were divided but beginning to unite against British control.
After the First Continental Congress met in 1774 to protect British laws, tensions between the colonies and Britain grew. When the British tried to seize colonial weapons in April 1775, the conflict turned violent at the battles of Lexington and Concord. The first shots of the American Revolution were fired, and the colonists forced the British to retreat, showing they were ready to fight for their independence.
After the battles of Lexington and Concord, the colonies realized they needed to fight together, not just as separate militias. In 1775, the Second Continental Congress created the Continental Army, the first official U.S. Army. They chose George Washington to lead it, hoping he could unite the militias from different colonies. But the new army faced big challenges. It lacked money, supplies, and training, making the fight for independence even harder.
As the War for Independence began, talk of freedom spread throughout the colonies. In 1775, Lord Dunmore, the British governor of Virginia, offered freedom to enslaved people who escaped their patriot masters and joined the British Army. Many saw this as a real chance for liberty, even though it came from Britain. The move revealed the irony of the revolution. Colonists were fighting for their own freedom while still denying it to others.
After Lord Dunmore's harsh measures pushed many colonists toward rebellion, Thomas Paine's pamphlet Common Sense fanned the flames even higher. Paine argued that it made no common sense for a vast continent to be ruled by a tiny island across the sea. He mocked the idea of kings as foolish and corrupt, declaring that the colonies were strong enough to govern themselves. His bold, plain-spoken words turned growing anger into a call for full independence. After Thomas Paine's Common Sense inspired the colonies by calling kings foolish and arguing that America could govern itself, the call for independence grew louder. Leaders met to act on this idea, and in 1776, the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence that said,
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal.
After it was read aloud, everyone signed, and people cheered and sang in celebration, proud that the colonies were finally breaking free from Britain and claiming the right to govern themselves. After the Declaration of Independence boldly severed ties with Britain, the British responded with a new plan to crush the rebellion. Their strategy was to separate the colonies using the Hudson River, hoping to cut off New England, the heart of the Revolution, from the rest. By dividing the colonies, they thought resistance would collapse, but the plan unraveled after key defeats, proving that unity among the colonies was stronger than British control. After the failed British campaign, Washington's troops settled into Valley Forge for the winter of 1777 through 1778, facing bitter cold, hunger, and disease. The army was desperate, supplies were scarce, morale was low, and many soldiers deserted. Yet through hardship and determination, and with new training from Baron von Steuben, the ragged force emerged stronger and more disciplined, ready to fight for independence. Out of the hard winter at Valley Forge, help came from other countries. Frederick von Steuben, a soldier from Prussia, trained Washington's tired army and taught them how to fight better. He wasn't the only one. Many other immigrants, like Marcus de Lafayette from France and Casimir Pulaski from Poland, also joined the Americans and helped them fight for freedom. With new training and help from immigrants like von Steuben and Lafayette, the American army grew stronger and more confident. This strength showed at the Battle of Saratoga, the turning point of the war. The Patriots won a huge victory, proving they could defeat the British in a major battle and giving hope that independence could really be won. After the Battle of Saratoga proved the Patriots could win, France decided to join the war on the American side. The French sent soldiers, ships, money, and supplies, giving the Americans the strong ally they needed. With the French help, the fight for independence became a truly global war, and the chances of victory grew even greater. With France now fighting behind them, the American and French forces worked together to trap the British army at Yorktown in 1781. Surrounded by land and sea, the British had no way out. After weeks of fighting, they surrendered, marking the final major battle of the war and securing American independence. After the victory at Yorktown, the Treaty of Paris, 1783, officially ended the Revolutionary War. Britain recognized the United States as an independent nation, and the new country's borders were set from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River and from Canada to Florida. Both sides agreed to stop fighting, and the Americans promised to return property to Loyalists and repay debts owed to Britain. The treaty marked the true beginning of the United States.
Bailarina cappuccina, tralalero, tralala, bombobini, cosini, brum.